Welcome to our 2023 Seattle City Club Year in Review. Yes. I am Alesha Crank, the Executive Director, and I am so excited to see so many of you here tonight on this rainy evening. I know there was bad traffic. I appreciate you. Seriously. I drove from Edmonds. I understand. So, tonight, we're going to be discussing a lot of different things. We're going to recap what we've seen in 2023, some hopes for 2024 with some of our community leaders here in the region. Now, for over 40 years, Seattle City Club has provided this kind of programming to inform, connect, and engage, and in some cases, re-engage, around civic issues to help strengthen our region. I want to thank our many supporters and donors who helped make this possible. We couldn't have been here 43 years without your help, and we're definitely going to need it going into 2024. But we're going to make it fun for you, so hold on to your hats about that. So finally, this program would not be possible without our title partner, Comcast, who's in the room today. And I would like to share a message that they wanted me to share with you. Comcast Washington strongly supports civic engagement and is proud to sponsor the Civic Cocktail Series as well as our Year in Review. And thanks you for joining us in a discussion about our democracy and the topics affecting our communities. So first, a little housekeeping. We're going to do this in two segments tonight. First, we have our county executive, King County Executive Dow Constantine, who is going to do a State of the County with us, and we'll open it up for some Q&A within that half an hour that we have with him today. And then we'll take a brief break and then come back with our panel, and I will tell you more about them during the second half. Now, someone said to me earlier today that I was the CEO of City Club. I could go with that. But executive director of this nonprofit. But I want all of you to become CEOs of City Club. What does that mean? Many of you have been with us for years. Sometimes for you, probably most of those 43 years we've been around as an organization. And we did used to have a membership model, and it went away, but now we're bringing it back. Thank you. You know, being in a space like this, like the collective, which is member-driven, and really just having some conversations with many of you who have come repeatedly throughout the course of the year and asked about, oh, what's going to be with the membership? How do I become a member? Can you do membership again? And I was like, yes, we can. So that's what we're going to do. So now more than ever, we know that civic engagement and especially civil discourse are paramount. So in 2024, we are pleased to introduce our Civically Engaged Organization, CEO, but open to individuals as well. And this membership will center around one of our programs, which is Civic Cocktail, because that's the one we do the most. That's the one that you guys like to come to, thank goodness. So with an annual membership, you'll be able to come to all the Civic Cocktails in 2024 without having to pay another dime. Now, what's also great about that, that's a future board member talking, by the way. But the other great thing about it, too, is that for individuals, it's just $100. And if you're paying $20 each time to come here, you're already saving money. Now, here's the other thing about it. For your organization, no matter how small or in some theory how big, that membership is for your entire organization. So if you're a small nonprofit with like 6 people or less, you pay $500 for the entire year, your whole team can come to Civic Cocktail. And it's just an amazing thing to do. A lot of you come because it's a way to connect. Some of us work remote, and so it's one of the times that we can connect with our fellow colleagues that we're working separate from. And we have pretty good cocktails here. So please consider it. You all should have something on your chair that talks about the membership. There's a QR code to tell you more information. But I hope that you will help us in helping us build sustainability. This is an amazing program that we put on, and we have an amazing production staff that makes our programming available to anyone at any time, but there is an expense that comes with it. So please help us through this membership. And during the break, we actually have some goodies for you over on the side, courtesy of City Club and Alaska Airlines. So make sure to grab some of that as well. So with that, I want to hand things over to our first speaker. We're so glad that he has been able to schedule this on such a busy day, our King County Executive, Dow Constantine.
Thank you, Alesha. And thanks to everyone. I am thrilled to be able to purchase a City Club membership for my 18,000 employees. It's going to be great. All for $500. No, dang it. I will have to put in a request with our budget director then. It's great to be here tonight. I know this setup is kind of fun, but the bar is right next to the speaker and on TV. So if you need another drink, just kind of sneak up this wall and go around this direction. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and present. You know, King County is a less well-known government. People are really aware of the city of Seattle and state and federal government, but we do so much stuff. And I could stand here and bore you for hours and hours and hours about what's happened over the course of this year. Our communications folks every year put together a greatest hits kind of thing, and it's always like the 23 greatest accomplishments of 2023. And I told them that maybe they just, you know, this was great in 2009. So they just need to dial it back to the standard 10 for this year. But I'm just going to talk about 2, 3, 4 things that we've done this year. This is supposed to be the state of King County. That is a half-hour set-piece speech. But instead, I just want to sort of reflect on some of the things that are top of mind. I mean, we're here in this magnificent city, a place that has been a gathering spot since time immemorial, and a place that continues to evolve actually quite rapidly these days, John Scholes. And yes, let's hear it for John Scholes. Single-handedly building downtown Seattle. And you know, you don't have to look far past this neighborhood or go back very far to recognize the remarkable evolution of the community here in central Puget Sound. I've been the executive of this county, and speaking of the county, there's a guy right back here, Mr. John Wilson, your county assessor. Thanks for being here, John. Geez, I've been 14 years as of a couple weeks ago. I've been executive, and we have seen a lot of changes over the course of that time. The population of the county has grown from 1.8 to 2.3 million people. We have seen remarkable economic growth. We have seen the skylines changing in Seattle, and not just Seattle, but in Bellevue and other urban centers. And really remarkable change across our 39 cities and the unincorporated area and our sister counties that together make up the place that the world knows as Seattle. We look back at this year and think about, you know, how much has happened now that we're all back out of our Zoom rooms and actually seeing each other again. And it's been a pretty exciting time. First on housing, just yesterday I was just telling these folks this. I got to join with Mercy Housing and Sound Transit and with Amazon to do a groundbreaking on a new affordable housing project at the Angle Lake Rail Station, which is in SeaTac. And I want to thank Amazon for stepping up and helping to fund that. But this is going to be a great project that provides affordable housing at transit for 130 families, including people, about I think 30 units set aside for folks with developmental disabilities or developmental delay with services. And this is the kind of work we need to do throughout all of these emerging urban centers so that we can be that community where every person has a place, can afford a place, and is able to thrive and take advantage of what this region has to offer. And that's just one project among nearly $30 million that the county is investing to build hundreds of new housing units really across that entire landscape. You know, we've struggled with this notion of the center city being the most desirable place, and then people have to move farther away to be able to afford it. But as we build this rail system with dozens and dozens of stations across 3 counties, there are suddenly dozens of centers where you can viably afford to live and work and have access to all of the educational and employment and recreational opportunities of the region. This is a radical change for our region, one obviously that should have happened decades ago. It has been a burr in my saddle since I was a little kid, and those rail measures failed in 1968 and 1970, but damn it, we're fixing it. So thanks for being there. You know, we also took another big step forward by passing the Crisis Care Centers levy, and I want to thank those of you who helped us put that together and help get it passed. This is a landmark investment in behavioral health in our communities. So how many people are sitting in jail, in a jail cell, when what they need is a treatment bed? How many people are at risk on the street when what they need is a place to recover? How many people, how many families across our community are quietly suffering and have nowhere to turn? We are going to be building centers for people in crisis across the region, investing in the longer-term residential treatment beds, and very importantly, for both this system and the broader behavioral health system, investing in the people who provide behavioral health care. You are investing that money over the course of several years, and it's going to make a big difference for our community. Now, we're just at the beginning stage of this. The money doesn't even start coming in until January, but we are moving forward as quickly as we can to meet this really glaring unmet need in our community. We launched a unique grant program this year as well. See, behavioral health, mental well-being is a critical issue, but there are a lot of related issues, including gun violence in our community, and the constant public health challenge, something we've declared a public health crisis of racism that is infused in everything in our society. And we launched a unique grant program, $25 million in direct investments that were community-driven to more than 120 organizations across the county to work to unwind and uproot systemic racism. As we seek to have our county come closer and closer to living up to the legacy of our namesake, Dr. King. And on the gun violence front, we launched our Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and this is the way in which communities, metropolitan regions across the country are beginning to respond to gun violence and to knit together our work with the federal government, with the work being done at the White House to combat this growing challenge in our nation. That idea that people should have the right to live free of violence, live free of the fear of gun violence, is at the center of our work in public health as well as in law enforcement, and we seek to ensure that freedom for everyone who resides here. It underpins our community's mission statement, our true north, that we are making this a welcoming community where every person can thrive. And a thriving community is one that leaves no one behind. I mean, this is a prosperous place. A lot of people are doing very well, and you know, I've lived here my whole life, and I've never seen opportunity like this. And yet there are people who, for generations, have been left behind here. And our challenge is to figure out how to include everyone in that prosperity and everyone in the cultural conversation. Not in my notes, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. Yesterday, the County Council approved Doors Open, our cultural access plan that is going to infuse about $100 million a year into arts, heritage, and culture including access, including youth, including work in schools, making sure that every person can be part of the artistic community and that our arts organizations are stabilized, that they have stable funding, that they're not constantly struggling and under threat of going out of business. This is going to be a big boost for our community, something that's done in a few other places and something that's going to distinguish us among mid-sized cities in the United States. And, you know, I talk about us not leaving anyone behind. I mean that literally as well, because, of course, we're the transit agency. We're Metro Transit. We are also the senior partner in Sound Transit. Metro Transit is not a new idea. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary a couple of months ago. And we are continuing our investments in reliability and connecting more communities. Earlier this year, we opened our newest Rapid Ride line. That runs from Burien to White Center and into downtown. And as we move closer to the goal that I set to be fully emission-free, completely electrified by 2035, we unveiled a new livery for our buses. Livery is a fancy word for paint job. And it's new, bold, clear colors that cut through the fog and murk like we've been seeing outside over time. Clear branding showing that we are electrifying our fleet. I want to mention I also serve as the chair of the Sound Transit Board. That is a very big job and a big part of my work every day. And we've got some exciting things to look forward to. In a few months, we're going to be opening the first stretch of rail on the east side, connecting Bellevue to Microsoft and Marymore, and soon thereafter, downtown Redmond and Mercer Island, and then across the bridge into downtown Seattle. It's going to be a real remarkable change for our region, just as the opening of University Link and Northgate were big changes for our region. This year we also had the chance to highlight some unique things about Seattle and our region when the eyes of the nation turned here to celebrate our national pastime, one of America's greatest exports to the world. Of course, I'm talking about the Taylor Swift tour. It was a big deal for us, and between that and the All-Star game, over the course of just a few days, we had like 1 million additional rides on transit, on buses and trains and the water taxi. People got the message, they used transit, and it is another step in our growing up as a region that not everyone has to rely on a car to get around. This is from my communications staff. Surpassed our wildest dreams. That's a Taylor Swift reference, just so you know. But the only one in my notes, so. And while that was all exciting, as people came across the country to visit, it's nothing compared to what's going to happen in the World Cup. The World Cup is going to be a remarkable event for our region. Tens of thousands of fans heading to the stadiums, people even more traveling from around the world to support their national teams, putting us in the headlines for a month or more, and it's going to be a very big team effort by us to get ready for it and to make that happen. Events like this work when we all work together, the public sector, community organizations, businesses large and small, teaming up to pull off major events, and it requires big thinking and candidly also a willingness to take on the big challenges in our community. I want to salute the DSA, the city government, and everyone who's pulling together to help us get through some of the challenges that were exacerbated during the pandemic and that just simply need to be fixed in a way that is humane and consistent with our values. You know, big ideas are at the core of the last thing I want to talk about. I want to share with you that we are reimagining, and I'll ignore my notes and just riff here, the entire district around the King County Courthouse. This is an area of town that has been the government center forever, and it has not really been reinvested in for a very long time. And of course, we have a vacant office building, we have a dilapidated jail, we have the world's ugliest sky bridge, we have a vacant lot in the middle of downtown Seattle. We have a lot of opportunity here, right? And we're talking about 7 blocks in the middle of one of America's most dynamic cities that's just sitting there. And at 6 o'clock, it's mostly vacant other than the folks in the jail. So we have an opportunity to reimagine this, to create a neighborhood that is dynamic, that is mixed income and mixed use, that is 24 hours a day, that invigorates Pioneer Square and the International District and First Hill and even the Financial District, that is a product of our highest values and our best thinking. And we are drawing ideas from all around the country and all around the world. And this is not something that's going to happen in a day or a year or maybe even a decade. But we want to create a space that is more than just a bunch of unrelated buildings. We want to create a space that really generates true community among people from different backgrounds, of different incomes, and is safe to be in all day and all night. It's an exciting thing for me, having lived in and looked at this space over the course of the last several decades, that we're on the precipice of actually being able to do this. Some of the most valuable land on the West Coast, some of the greatest zoning potential, the greatest development potential of any parcels anywhere, and they're just sitting there waiting for us to act. So we're going to do it right. We're not in a hurry. We're rather going to spend a lot of time thinking about how to get this right. We're going to get the right people involved in this. It's going to be a community-wide effort, and I could not be more excited to be here at the start of it. In conclusion, as we get closer to 2024, an awful lot of good things have happened in 2023, but clearly the best for our city, for our region, is yet to come. And the theme of building is one that I've really been dwelling on this year. Some of you have heard me talk about it. But whether it's physical building, like this region-wide rail system, or this new neighborhood in downtown Seattle, or rebuilding our public health and trauma hospital, or whether it is building the opportunity that people have to thrive through behavioral health care, economic opportunity, or anti-racism, finding a way for us to live up to our ideals, the ideals of Dr. King, the ideals that we have laid down in our true north, that we will be a community that welcomes everyone and within which every single person, regardless of where you started, can thrive. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here tonight.
From the Broadway Performance Hall at Seattle Central College, good evening and welcome to the debate between candidates who want to represent you.
I'm a nonprofit leader, small business owner, community connector, and a problem solver.
This issue around affordability has come home for us all.
The community is such a huge piece of our organization. It is a foundational pillar.
You know, for me, what's real important in my life is that the work that I do has to really align with my own personal values.
Leading the way in finding opportunities that fit growing the community and growing the game of hockey.
They never even owned a pair of skates, let alone a bicycle. And the fact that, you know, they were able to come to the Iceplex and skate.
I think that there's a lot going on in our district that we actually can address and perhaps even be a model.
Priorities from day one are public safety, dealing with homelessness.
I want a small business to be able to thrive. Right. I want to see daycare. I want to see activation. Heck, I love dog parks.
So it's all about how you just treat everyone like they matter, and that is what I've learned from just my experience in this world.
Today's event is in partnership with the Muckleshoot Tribe. We're here at their resource center to continue to advance digital equity. The federal government has a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is available to help people get access to the internet and to have a subsidy toward their monthly bills.
Most people can receive up to $30, but people living on an Indian reservation can receive up to $75 per month.
We are signing people up for the IE program, which is Internet Essentials. Having access to internet, people can work from home, do school, just live their daily lives. Even just watching TV, you need internet, and it's essential.
It's not just about having a free subsidy, it's about having a device and then understanding how to use it. So today we were able to help folks sign up, so that's step 1. 2, we also are providing 150 laptops to the community. And then 3, with the support of digital navigators, we can help folks have that digital skill and relevancy to make sure that they're connected, they can afford it, and they can use it effectively.
The digital navigators that we have are not only promoting the Affordable Connectivity Program, but also Internet Essentials. So having someone who can walk somebody through that process, especially if someone lacks digital skills, these folks are here to help them.
Multimedia Resources and Training Institute, also known as MMRTI, is a nonprofit organization. We give youth a voice in terms of what they want and need and resources.
Also, we provide digital literacy classes for senior community members who want to learn more about how to use their computers.
I'm here with the MMRTI as part of the digital navigators, and so far we're helping people get the discount, the Affordable Connectivity Program.
This is what it's all about, and it's so special because it really is driven by the community based on the needs of the community. I'm proud of the work that we've done, and it's really great to see everybody working together to make an impact.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, this is the part that I am really looking forward to, because it's always great to have a diverse line of voices talking about similar topics. And this is our year in review. When we look back at 2023, it's easy to forget the world and local news that happened just months ago, let alone a year. The Chinese spy balloon floating across the US, earthquake in Turkey and Morocco, the coronation of King Charles, Major League Baseball All-Star Week right here, Taylor Swift and Beyonce dominating the music world. Oh, and Tay is Person of the Year for Time Magazine. Do you guys see that? I'm not mad at that. And we also saw the rise of ChatGPT. And just a few of the major moments of the past year. So tonight we're going to look back at the past year's local and world events and predict what might happen in 2024 with our expert panel. And I will be with John Scholes, the president and CEO of the Downtown Seattle Association. Yes. Alesha Washington, president and CEO of the Seattle Foundation. Love your name. She has a great first name. Sam Cho, president of the Port of Seattle Commission. And last but not least, Shasti Conrad, chair of the Washington State Democrats. Welcome, everybody. So I'm gonna sit here in my cozy little chair. Give us one defining moment from 2023 for you, whether it was local or national.
I think for me in 2023, for the Port, was the year that we kind of finally got ourselves back out into the world. Obviously, we were in the depths of the pandemic for the last several years, and 2023 was really the first year where we didn't have to wear masks, where we didn't have quarantines or any other restraints around COVID. And so I was just reflecting on, and some of you who know me personally know I've been on the road a lot. And I've actually, in the last 12 years, I've been to 10 countries and 16 cities. And part of why I did that is because, our region needs to get back out there and put ourselves back on the map. And I feel like during the pandemic, everyone kind of went into their little corners or, hid under the rocks. One thing that personal for me is I actually just came back from Korea last week, excuse me. I was in Korea last year too, but, and the Port of Seattle actually renewed our sister port agreement with the Port of Busan, South Korea, for the first time in 42 years. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know my story, my parents are actually immigrants from South Korea, came here in 1985, immigrated through the Port of Seattle. And so for me to now be able to go back to the motherland, so to speak, right, and really strengthen the ties between the two countries and our regions is really special. And if I may, I just want to thank you. I want to point out something real quickly that was told to me during the signing ceremony by the leader of the Port of Busan. He said, "So your parents immigrated to the United States. Yes. They went through the Port of Seattle? Yes. And now you run the Port of Seattle? Yes. I said, Sam, that's the reason America is the greatest country in the world. And it's so true. It is so true. And I'm so proud of that. And the fact that even in our own little local world of Seattle, King County, that we can do that on a global level, that we can come out of this pandemic, and I hope everyone feels the same way, that we can really start punching above our weight is really exciting to me, and really, it was a special moment for me, but also an example of how we can start really engaging the world on a global level.
And you were just in Busan last week.
That's right, Thursday, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shasti?
Well, on a personal front, I was elected into this role to lead the Washington State Democrats in January of this year, making me, in our state, I'm the first woman of color and our youngest chair that we've had, but nationally, I'm the first Asian American to be elected as state party chair, and the first South Asian woman for either party in the entire country to be elected. And so I'm really proud of that, and proud because, not just obviously for me, but because what it means for our party, that we are moving forward, that we are building a coalition that is diverse, that we are bringing younger people into this work, and I think that's incredibly important. And then, I'm really proud of our election results in November. Around the state, we had a lot of really great wins, and for us, our biggest flippable opportunity was the Spokane mayor's race. It had been held by a Republican for 12 years, and we did that. We got Lisa Brown elected to Spokane, which is a big, big, big deal. And Spokane's been, really an up-and-coming city, and is the second largest city in the entire state. But they've been doing really good work that Lisa's been putting forth around middle income housing and becoming a bit of a model for even back here in Seattle and King County for some of the work that they are doing. And so it was really important. We've had a progressive city council, but we really needed that leadership for that city. And then my own little personal project that I had this year was the town of Sunnyside, which is just right outside of Yakima. 70% Latino community. It had never really had Latino leadership on their city council before, and the three incumbents were all white men who had leaned Republican. They'd all won by less than 100 votes. One guy had only won by 1 vote, and we were able to get 2 Latino women elected to that city council, which is going to be a big, big transformative opportunity for that community, and so I'm incredibly proud of that, as well as our victories across the state as well.
Alesha.
So mine isn't as kind of exciting in some ways, but it's defining for me, right? So I've been in this community a little over 18 months. I came from Ohio, working in the policy scene, working in the philanthropy scene, to come here to be a part of the work that Seattle Foundation is doing. And there are a lot of, as you can imagine, cultural, political, civic differences that I'm observing being from one community and now being here. And a really defining moment for me, not that long ago, was actually born out of a bad place. But it was students at Rainier Beach High School that called in the city and other electeds to talk with them about safety, and really holding elected leaders accountable and law enforcement accountable for the safety that they need in their community, just trying to get to and from school. And that's defining for me for a couple reasons. One, there is a deepness around authentic activism and organizing that I see here that is rich and deep in ways that I don't always see in other parts of the country, or even in Ohio. And even though there's good work, there is something very powerful about young people leaning into their own power and their voice. And it's defining because it makes me think about how we go deeper at the foundation in terms of investing in that type of work, that organizing, that movement building, that really builds the power that people have to have agency over their own lives. So it's unfortunate that young people have to call adults to account for their safety, but there is something meaningful about the power that they feel to do so. And so I've been holding on to that this year.
Go ahead, John.
Defining moment for downtown, I gotta go with Tay-Tay's 2 nights in downtown Seattle in July. And she set a record for the most hotel revenue ever generated on a single night in downtown Seattle. That record was previously set just a few weeks before by George Strait when he was here with Chris Stapleton. She blew it out of the water by like $2 million. She's like, let me show you how this is done, fellas. And it's just the level of excitement and energy around her shows. It's multi-generational, it crosses political boundaries. There's not a lot like that right now in our country, that as far as a product and experience that draws us all together. And she truly is a mastermind and just had a huge impact on economic activity and people being in downtown Seattle and stores and restaurants and bars and hotels and workers. And it's great for all of us to be able to come together around experiences like that. And that's really what downtowns are about. You know, those experiences you can't get anywhere else, and being around other people where you share things in common, but you also can appreciate your differences. And she really delivered that 2 nights in July.
And that is a perfect segue into my next question for you. So the next few questions will be specific to people, but we also invite others on the panel to chime in where you feel like you want to. So John, I'm going to ask you a very general question, which is, how has downtown been revitalized over the past year? What are you saying? What do you want to share with us?
The things we want to see going up and to the right, you know, visitors and more people back in the office and residents are all going up and to the right. Some at different paces than others, but we've got more people living in downtown Seattle today than we had pre-pandemic. 106,000 people from First Hill to the water, Seattle Center down to the stadium. So a record residential population. The return of visitors from, whether you're from Issaquah or Iowa or beyond, is about what we saw in 2019 when you look at from May to September. And that's a mix of leisure travelers and families coming for a weekend, conventions and meetings. The cruise season has had 2 record seasons, and thanks to the great folks at the port for what they're doing to drive economic activity and spending and tax revenue in our region. So the visitor numbers have been great. Return to office has been, you know, slow but steady. It's going in, you know, the upward direction. We're about 55% of where we would be this month in 2019. So a lot to celebrate as far as what we want to see going up. And the things we want to see going down, violent crime, property crime, folks suffering on the street, those are all going down as well. We're in a better position today in downtown Seattle than we were a year ago or 2 years ago when it comes to those important metrics. So when you look at our West Coast peers, whether it's San Francisco, Portland, LA, I like where we're at as a downtown. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of work to do to give people more opportunity that didn't have the opportunity before to be in this place, whether you're a small business owner or somebody coming up for the weekend from Kent. But I think we're rebuilding and revitalizing at a very steady pace, and I think Seattle's best days are still ahead of us.
And a follow-up question to that, thank you, yes. A follow-up question that maybe Sam might weigh on this one as well is, what's the progress and impact on the waterfront redevelopment, convention center expansion, price place market? How has that factored into the revitalization, and what do you see that going with that?
So the waterfront project, when it's done in the summer of 2025, and that's not that far away, right? We've waited for this thing for 15 plus years, and it's going to be worth it. It's going to rival any waterfront in North America. I don't think we fully appreciate what's happening down there, and it's not done, and don't judge it yet. Yeah, that's gray, but the landscaping's not all in. I mean, people have criticized it. Oh, it's all this concrete and it's gray. It's not done yet. The landscaping's coming, but it's going to be, I think, a little bit of Stanley Park in Vancouver, you know, that beach access, that nature that that you see up in Vancouver, a little bit of Brooklyn Bridge Park in New York City, a little bit of the High Line when you take that in New York, where you take the Overlook Walk from Pike Place Market down to the waterfront and get those grand vistas. So it's the best of some of the best parks in North America. It's going to be worth the wait. And then what Mackenzie Scott, Melinda French Gates, and Barry Diller, the chair of Expedia, have committed to and announced back in August, another $50 million of additional improvements north of Pier 62, where the original Central Waterfront project was going to conclude, is just going to now create this 3.5-mile stretch from the Expedia campus down to Pioneer Square, 50 acres of new public space. It's going to be phenomenal. And I think in a lot of ways, it's going to be this big invitation to folks in this region, you know, the locals that may have not been back downtown since the pandemic. It's going to be an invitation for them to come check this out. And hopefully they see a bunch of other things that are open and exciting, arts and culture and restaurants and retail that they can take part in as well. So it's going to be something to see and experience.
Yeah, and I would just add that on a more macro level, or from the perspective of like a post-pandemic world, we have to reimagine what a downtown looks like, right? Like downtown Seattle is no longer just going to be a place you go to work, right? It will be a place where you take your kids, you have, family time where you live, right? And so the waterfront park, the new aquarium, the project from 62 up to Expedia, this is all part of that long-term vision to recreate the downtown core of Seattle to something that is just beyond, the place that I go into my office, right? And I think, what's amazing is that in some ways, the pandemic obviously changed our way of thinking of downtown, but obviously the waterfront park and the plans for that preceded the pandemic, right? And so we were kind of like skating to where the puck is going without knowing that the puck was going to go that way, right? And so it really is like the perfect confluence of like good strategic long-term planning, right? That just so happens to meet the reimagining that we need to do in order to create a vibrant downtown for the future.
I appreciate the hockey reference. If you know me, you know. Alesha, what the heck is a community foundation? I know what one is, but many people probably will ask and say they've heard of it, but they're not sure what a community foundation is and how it comes back into the community. Can you share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a perfect question because we've used this term forever, but not many people actually know what it is, right? It's the thing we just assume but don't talk about. And so at its core, the way it's structured, community foundations were established for philanthropists, those with wealth within a community that wanted to pool their resources to invest in place to have a mechanism to do so, right? And so when you think about Seattle, you had a number of like well-known name families that still exist today and others that came together, and a lot of the work that they did to invest in the civic and cultural infrastructure of this city live on today, right? And so there is this donor-advised model where people put their dollars in, and then they work with a small team, and our team has grown over time in the 77 years that we've been around to support philanthropists in that work. So that's the origin story of Seattle Foundation and pretty much every community foundation across this country within a localized context of who came together with wealth and a commitment to place, to invest in that place for generations to come. But that definition is changing in real time today, and I think we are at an inflection point for community philanthropy as a whole to really think about what is our role in today's world and going forward. It's no longer just enough to be of service to a lot of different folks that do care about place, but have their own personal agendas as it's related to philanthropy, when there are so many issues that are right at our front doors that push us into a place where we actually have to have a point of view. Right? And 2020 was a turning moment for a lot of organizations, some authentically, some symbolically, but however you got there, we all were in a place where we needed to respond to the fact that the world was rapidly changing, that within the US context, there was a real racial reckoning for us to deal with some issues that we have wrestled to deal with in the past, and for institutions like ours that hold significant wealth, and there's a lot of debate and conversation about how that wealth was made at the expense of whom, that we now have to think about how those resources are a catalyst for good, and we have to have a point of view about issues that is no longer about being of service solely to just people with wealth, but how do we work with folks with wealth that care about community to be better connected to community, and folks driving work on the front lines of social justice and systems change to do that effectively. And so Seattle Foundation has a vision of fostering a joyful region of shared prosperity, belonging, and justice. Shared prosperity is meant to be real for us, not just feel-good philanthropy. And so we have to work at the intersection of grant making, but also public policy and advocacy that is informed by the organizations that we invest in, as well as, the expertise and wisdom of those that have been investing in us to move real change in this community. And so how we resource that as an operation is gonna be important in future years, because people see $1.2 billion and assume I got a whole lot to work with. Yes and no, right? I am a $12 million organization that stewards $1.2 billion. I only have access to about 5% of that bigger corpus to do direct grant making that my team can drive. And so having influence, building relationships, resourcing that engine, and then thinking about the future is the moment that community foundations are in right now to change that story from just the traditional philanthropic bank model of service to others with wealth to how do we become a social impact-driven organization that changes the region.
Yes. Alesha, What are some of those regional and local issues that philanthropic organizations like yours can make the most difference, or are starting to hone in on, to what you were saying?
Yeah, so Seattle Foundation operates within kind of a frame in our grant-making approach on our discretionary side, known as the Blueprint for Impact, right? And so we are thinking about the ways in which we invest in organizations, and that is really driven from a focus of helping organizations with multi-year flexible dollars to do organizing, advocacy, power building, movement building work within communities. We have multidimensional lives. Organizations work on multidimensional issues. So we try to steer away from being like an overly issue-specific funder, but really recognizing the breadth and diversity of what folks are working on and the intersections of that, to ensure we're investing in a way that gives them the flexibility to play within the direct service space as well as the policy and advocacy space, because we need both to be effective. But the issues at large, I mean, it's the things that we all care about, it's the headlines that we're reading. I'm sure it will be much of the conversation tonight, right? Housing, access to affordable housing. We know that this community has broad needs across every aspect of housing production that is needed over the next 20 years if we're going to keep pace with the anticipated population growth, whether that's downtown or other parts of the city or other parts of the county. Our particular focus is around the affordability piece as we think about displacement in neighborhoods, especially where people probably came up in place but no longer can afford to live here. They had grandma's house but no longer can afford to be in grandma's house, right? So those kind of dynamics, as well as the twin issue of homelessness and how it's connected to housing and how are we better building that pipeline, right? Transit-oriented development, we're all thinking about that. It's what the county executive spoke about in terms of how do we get better access for how people move, connected to affordable housing that they can live in and feel good about. And then also childcare, but really more focused on how we help families thrive. One of the big impacts of the pandemic upon many is that for those of you with kids, young kids especially, when we all had to stay home, you were trying to figure out how to work or also care for your kids in place. And quality childcare options in the industry itself had dire impacts, right? Where you had home care providers that are struggling to even keep their shops open because of the lack of resources they were receiving, because people couldn't actually bring their kids into a facility anymore. And so those are probably the significant issues that we hear in this community. Yes, there are many others, but when we think about the intersection where we can have impact, there are clear policy opportunities and there's public and political will. Of all the things we do, those are the things that are in front of us right now.
No, and that actually leads into my next question, would be about all the topics that you've brought up. As residents, all of us probably agree that when we think about those things, we start to think about our elected officials and how they work into creating solutions, hopefully, around housing, homelessness, job opportunity. Shasti, you talked about in your early introduction about the elections, but I'm going to specifically think about Seattle for this commentary. And you know, City Club did 4 of the Seattle City Council debates, and we focused on the 4 districts where there wasn't an incumbent. So we knew that new leadership was coming in one way or the other. And now we see that just about all the seats are new people, because none of the incumbents made it through. What is your assessment of how those elections went here? And then John, I would also be interested to hear from you from a business perspective, because we know that was very heavily leaned in on during the election season, about not just in downtown, but all over, small businesses feeling like that they were getting support from their elected officials. So Shasti, I'll start with you.
Certainly. I mean, I think it was very clear that there have been calls for change. You know, I think that the residents of, Seattle were ready for a new direction for their city council, ready for a new vision. I think, much of the work that John and Sam have talked about, Seattle really has been leading in a lot of ways, but I think there are places where folks just in a visceral sense felt like their city council wasn't doing enough. I look at also earlier this year when we had I-135 around social housing, and that passed overwhelmingly. And what that told me is that folks just want solutions. They want something. They want to try, and they want to feel like their elected officials are completely are going to be pushing for bold change because the status quo isn't working. It's always interesting in Seattle because pretty much everyone runs as a Democrat, and you have these sort of inter-party, discussions and needing to make sure that we are having those in the sort of like family space, right? This is a big tent party, and that we are welcoming in all of our Democrats from whatever perspective and background that they come in. But it was time. It was time for a new change. I do think we can't talk about the election results without talking about low voter turnout. We had the lowest voter turnout that we've had in a decade. We have seen that these odd-year elections are consistently low voter turnout that are normally around 35%. I believe we got to 38% here in Seattle for this year. But that, I think we have to really look at that because that is a difficult mandate especially when you have elections where, one of those seats was decided by a few hundred votes. That's like 17% of a city that's been engaged and is supporting you. And so how do we make sure that we are continuing to build a coalition with folks who not only didn't vote for you, but weren't even paying attention or for whatever reason decided not to actually participate in that process? So I think that we all have to take a look at that and take that very seriously. I feel very strongly about looking at moving to even year elections as King County Council has decided to do. And I do think that is going to change the nature of the results that we do get in places like Seattle.
So we had 4 of 9 city council members, incumbents, that decided not to run. And then on election night, we had 3 that were trailing, and 2 eventually squeaked through. So I think the message from voters was clearly, we want a new direction. This was a change election from where we had been. But I don't think the values of voters in this city are fundamentally different today than they were 2 months ago or last year. I think this is still a very progressive city, but I think voters are saying, let's put some progress back in our progressivism. And we haven't seen progress on the issues that I think matter to all of us in this room and that matter to voters based on all the polling that had been done over the last year and a half. We're spending more as a city, as individual taxpayers, we're giving more to city government than we ever have before. We have record high levels of gun violence. We have lots of people sleeping out on the streets. We're going to have a record number of people in this city die from drug overdoses on our streets this year. Last year, drug overdoses became the leading cause of death among those that are sleeping outside. So we're going in the wrong direction on a host of issues, but we're spending more than we ever have. And so I think there's a call for results, clear plans, clear outcomes, progress, that voters signaled in their decisions in November. And I think this, too, was an election where the labels that we attempt to use to delineate and describe different candidates became kind of silly and goofy and not all that helpful or instructive. And I think voters largely ignored them. I mean, you had Joy Hollingsworth running in the 3rd District, who's a queer black woman who runs a cannabis business with her family, checks every box on every liberal, democratic, progressive issue and position, is labeled as the conservative in that race. And then in Ballard, you have a candidate in Dan Strauss who was supportive of hiring more cops and talking about public safety. All of his mail, all of his messaging was getting tough on crime in Ballard and making it safer for everybody. He's the progressive in that race. He had the same positions as his conservative opponent. So I think voters saw through a lot of the labeling and framing in a lot of these races. And we're really clear about what are the issues I care about, what's the progress I want to see, what are the results that I deserve, given what I'm spending as a taxpayer in this city.
I think go ahead. So one of the other topics that's been really prevalent this year on a number of different fronts is climate change. So I'm curious from the Port's perspective, how is the Port addressing climate change and the work that you do?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. One of the things that I've really hammered in as the president of the Port this year is to build the Port of the future. That's kind of been my slogan for the year, build the Port of the future. And what that looks like for us is a port that is the greenest port in North America. The port has set a very ambitious goal to have our carbon emissions by 2030 and to become net zero by 2040, not 2050, 2040. I think from all my travels, engaging with other ports and whatnot, one thing that I've realized is that you can't do it alone. The reality is we are one of many ports, of thousands of ports around the world. We are a part of an ecosystem, a supply chain. You know, in the world of sustainability, we talk about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. And I think what we need to do is make sure that we're working with all our partners, right? I think we're really blessed here in the Pacific Northwest because we have the Boeings of this world that make all the planes, right? We have the Amazons of this world who have publicly committed to sustainability. And then we have, you know, a tremendous amount of resources in the state. We have some of the lowest electricity costs in the country thanks to our hydro dams. That means that there's a reason why the Department of Energy designated the Northwest as a hydrogen hub, right, a couple of weeks ago, right? We have tremendous advantages here that other regions of the country don't have. So as a port, we're investing a tremendous amount of dollars to make sure that we're building that port of the future. We're doing research on hydrogen, methanol, ammonia. We're looking at municipal solid waste in partnership with King County. We're doubling down on sustainable aviation fuels. We're installing cold ironing or onshore power out our docks so those vessels can power down when they're parked in our marinas, right? And so we really are leading the industry in the world in a lot of these aspects. But a lot of that is thanks to the ecosystem that we built here, and I don't think we really advertise that enough. One thing that I'll say is, one thing that Dow failed to mention during his remarks is we did have the All-Star Game, we did have Taylor Swift, we also hosted the APEC ministerial meetings this summer, and we had countries from APEC converging in Seattle. And one thing that stood out to me is every time I presented or spoke at APEC, the response would always be like, oh, I didn't know that about Seattle. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, right? And it was like frustrating because it's like we have so much stuff going on here and we're too modest about it, right? And so for us to finally get out there and advertise a lot of the great work that we're doing at the Port of Seattle, but also in partnership with King County Metro, with Light Rail, with you know, all the other different government agencies that are all on the same page when it comes to our climate change goals, is a tremendous advantage for us. I think the last thing I'll say here is, folks, we live in a bubble here in Seattle. And I think John and Shasti have also kind of highlighted on the fact that like in Seattle and in the King County region, we live in a bubble, right? And we don't really truly appreciate the fact that like we are arguing like little margin of difference between ourselves, right? That's really what we're arguing here, where if you go to areas like North Carolina or Virginia, like the difference is so vast that they can't even agree on policies that are so common sense, what we would consider so common sense here.
So in just a moment, we're going to do a fun lightning round activity that will include the panel. So get your cards ready. I just want to make sure that our panelists have their cards. So while we're getting those for you, very serious question. I want you to really think about this before you answer. What show have you been binge watching? What are you binging that has helped you get through the doldrums of the sad weather or just getting you through the day? You got to be binge watching something.
I'm willing to admit something tonight and embarrass myself in front of everyone. But I always say, you know, the deeper I am in politics, the worse my TV watching gets. And I will admit that the fact that Love is Blind was here in Seattle earlier this year, I watched it for Seattle. And then I found myself down the rabbit hole. I'm going to admit it. So unfortunately, that did take up probably too much time, but I did watch Love is Blind.
Well, fun fact, they did film a little bit of it here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, in the collective.
No, I just embarrassed myself in front of everybody. Someone's got to, like, not serious stuff, you know, The Crown, The Diplomat, right? That's all.
I did binge watch The Diplomat. It was a pretty good show. Yeah.
I'm more of a music, live sports guy, but I did get back into the 100-foot wave on HBO. the second season of that.
So I'm the only one watching the Snap Marathon. That's it.
I'm big into animation. I try to go for something real light to balance the heavy of things. So I watch a show called Craig of the Creek. Your kids probably watch it. I watch it too. And that has been a lighthearted thing of joy for me, for sure.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that I don't really watch a lot of TV or shows, but I have been because I've been on a plane a lot this year. I had not watched Succession, and I binge watched the entire thing.
Yes.
I could not stop. So now I understand why everyone was obsessed with that show.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move into our lightning round. So everyone, or most of you, should have 3 cards, red, yellow, and green. And so we're going to ask a question, and you just have to raise up the card that you want to respond with. So red is no, yellow is maybe, and green is yes. Got it? Okay. We're going to try it out. First question.
Wait, one more time.
So in 2023, is the pandemic really over? Oh, that's a nice little mix. Okay. Did you vote in November? Somebody lying.
I love this.
All right, it's
Civically
good.
engaged people.
All right. She's on it. Are you surprised by the Seattle City Council election results? Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Have you used ChatGPT?
We got to catch up. We got to catch up.
Have you been to Climate Pledge Arena to see a cracking game or concert? Oh, you red people. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Did you move to the United States in the last 10 years?
Did we
you
what?
move to the United States in the last 10 years? Oh, no transplants. Okay. Do you like the new waterfront development so far? Okay. Now we're going futuristic. In I got another one. In 2024, prediction. UW will win the NCAA college football playoffs. There's some red. Oh my goodness. Oh, they must be Michigan fans. Wow. I don't know. The Mariners will reach the playoffs in 2024.
There's some doubt in the room. There's some doubt.
Oh, gosh. Will Megan Rapinoe run for Congress? Someone submitted it. Okay, we're going to start going into our closing questions for now. So at this time, I'll start with John and work the other way around. What gives you hope going into 2024?
A lot of people care about this place. There's a deep civic commitment to Seattle, the Seattle region. I think people either are born here or they come here, and they generally don't want to leave because they love the quality of life that's offered here. The environment, inclusive culture, I think a shared set of values. And so they want to make it a better place for them, for their family, for their kids. And I think that's Seattle's secret sauce. It's not a pass-through town. It once was when people came here in the late 1800s, early 1900s to go seek gold in Alaska, but no more. This is a place that people come to, they are invested, they want to make it better, and I think that is what has made this place special over 150 plus years and why we're making, I think, some good headway and progress as we recuperate from the pandemic.
That's why we all have to join City Club, because we're here.
Amen.
Yes.
Right on cue.
Alesha?
Yeah, so I'll say +1 to John from the perspective of I think there is something really special about the passion people that have for this place, and that shows up in so many different ways. The thing that gives me hope, and actually to quote the brilliant Marcus Green, who's not here tonight. But he wrote a piece about how he glimpsed hope in a South Seattle park and talked about to know freedom, to know hope, is to see the rendering of a world not yet born but laboring to be. And we get there through the pathway of every conversation, every march, everything we do together as people. And what I see in this community in so many different aspects of it gives me a lot of faith in what's possible because of how deeply people care. So then we'll hold this place to high critique of how it becomes better.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly, we've weathered a lot these last several years, and I think for those of us in the Democratic Party community, it's been since 2016 that we've weathered a lot. And what I see is that fight in people to continue to believe in this promise of democracy, representative democracy, continuing to believe that we can make this place better, that we can contribute, that we can come together, that we can have these political fights within the family, but we can come back together and support each other and do what needs to get done, and we can continue to stand up for democracy. I met with a delegation from Ukraine last week, and to hear from them, the very present fight for democracy, for their rights. One of the members had to stay home because Kiev was literally under siege. And to see how, our futures, that hope is so tied together, and that people are continuing to stand up and fight for what's right and fight for democracy, even in our beautiful city here in Seattle, it's something to be really, really proud of.
Yeah, and I also want to piggyback off John's comments. I just feel like the last 3 to 4 years, we've seen a tremendous resilience in this region. And I can back that up with numbers. Before the pandemic, our airport was accommodating 52 million passengers a year we dropped a lot during the pandemic, and we rebounded. We're right around 51 million passengers this year. And so we are recovering quicker than a lot of other major cities in around the world. I mean, around the world as well, but also around the country. And part of that is because I just feel like there's this willingness from those leaders around this region, but also our communities, to there's just like this pent-up desire to really work together to rebound. And I feel like a good analogy for us in this region is when you run, sometimes you got to take a step back to push yourself forward, right? And I feel like we're at that precipice where everyone's just willing to contribute, and there's so much potential here, and everyone wants that potential to be realized. Not just at the port, our elected leaders, the community, folks that come to these events, right? Quite frankly, there was 4 different holiday events today. I'm not gonna lie, and the fact that we all committed to this, civic cocktail hour with the City Club is a testament to the fact that we have our priorities straight as a community. And I think that in 24 and beyond, we're going to see a lot of the fruits of that labor. We're going to see us come back in ways, reimagine ourselves as a region, and really put Seattle on the map in a way that we've never seen in the past. And so that's what really excites me, and I'm so glad that we have all the leaders that we have, starting with those of us on stage, but also I know there are many leaders in our respective communities in this room. So I just want to thank you all as well for making that commitment to the community, and I just can't wait to see where this takes us.
That was good. So I want to have you guys give one final thought in light of what Sam just said and what you've all have alluded to over the course of this conversation. Is what advice or tip do you want to give to your fellow constituents, your fellow residents in Greater Seattle to become civically engaged in 2024? How would you like to see people get civically engaged?
Join the City Club? I don't know.
Yes.
No, I think Shasti, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Shasti, but we are up. I'm sorry to steal your thunder. 2024 is going to be the most consequential election of our lifetime. And I know we say that every single cycle, but the reality is that 24 is going to be, it's going to set us back a generation or propel us forward. And I think that if we see the level of turnout or the lack of civic engagement we saw in 23 during the off-year cycle, we are screwed. All right, so it's not just incumbent on each of you. You know, as an elected, I always tell people, you are one person, but you know people, right? And that compounding effect of the people that you know is tremendously important, right? And Shasti talked about council members who lost by a couple hundred votes. Like, that is the margin of error. This room right here could literally be the margin of victory for somebody next year. And I just want to point out, we have a gubernatorial race. We have an AG's race for the first time in 12 years, right? So it's not just consequential for our nation, but it's also consequential for our state. So I can't emphasize enough how, and quite frankly, I'm preaching to the crowd here because you all here on a Wednesday night when you could probably be partying somewhere else. But I do think that you all talking to your relatives, your friends, and your network at work will make a huge impact in 24. Sorry, Shasti.
Sam just said what, like he heard it from me before. Yeah, no, I mean, he's absolutely right on. And, I often say, I can't wait to be able to say and like stop saying that this is the most important election of our life. But unfortunately, every single one of them are. And, the people who determined 2016 were the 66 million folks who didn't vote. And so we have to do everything we can to make sure that not only that we are voting, but that our friends and family, that the people that we come in contact with, all of the data says that it's relational organizing. It is the reason why people vote is because they hear other people being excited about voting and participating and being civically engaged. And, with all of that said, we also have to take care of each other through all of this, right? It is exhausting work. And, it is exhausting to continue to feel like we're pushing that boulder up the mountain, but it is of essential, vital, life-defining work. And so we have to be there for each other, stay with ourselves and make sure that we're doing what we can to take care of ourselves through all of this work, and just remember that, we are in this together, that we don't have to do this alone, and that we've got a great, beautiful community here in Seattle and with Seattle City Club that is here to support all of us through that work.
I mean, +1 to both of your comments, and I'd say in addition to talking to your friends, your family, those in your network and neighbors, to encourage them to be engaged and to discuss and understand and be educated on the issues, invest in organizations that are driving the work. The name of the game is relational organizing by far, and there are incredible organizations across this community with organizers and activists that are driving that work. And so as we are considering the year end and how people are thinking about the ways that they give, make a donation to organizations doing that work. Make a donation to the Seattle City Club so more conversations are happening where we're engaged with each other in these ways, and then we act. I think that's beyond the personal piece of it. Supporting the organizations that are on the front lines of this work is also really crucial.
I've always believed that influence was really up for grabs, and certainly there's folks born into this world that are afforded more influence than others, but I think in a lot of ways it's up for grabs, and I think the ways in which we can affect change, aren't too different now, even with all this technology and AI and social media, than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. I think showing up matters, and we've seen votes at City Hall where 30 people have organized themselves to testify and bring signs, and they've swayed votes there. So I think, keep posting. Sure, let's talk amongst ourselves on social media and opine, but you got to show up. And that's voting, that's testifying, that's writing letters, that's inviting a city council member to your neighborhood to meet with 10 of your neighbors to have a conversation about something you care about. That stuff still matters, and the change that we've seen in the city, in this country, and in our state is really made through those types of actions.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for our panel? It's so great to hear from all of you. Thank you all for being here tonight. I think you told some of my thunder about the audience being here tonight on a Wednesday, where we know there's parties and stuff going on, but this is a fun party. We're having a great time. So, so please, let's take the next half an hour to kind of hang out and connect with one another. Speaking of doing your due diligence and being more civically involved, next month in January, we're having our annual legislative preview. So we'll be having that as a lunch event on Friday, January the 5th, over at the sister location to here, the Columbia Tower Club. So I hope you will all be there. Members get discount tickets. Just saying. So thank you so much again to Comcast for helping sponsor this event and being such a great partner with City Club for so many years. Thank you. Thank you, Bermudez Media, for making us look good this year and making our content available for free to everyone when it's online. So we give them a round of applause as well. We cannot reach the number of people that we have without them. So with that, thank you so much. Enjoy, and we'll see you next year.